titled Construction Management Post-Covid-19. Well, we are witnessing unprecedented times. Never before in history have we seen oil prices fall below zero. Businesses are collapsing. Straightforward answers, historical information. There's no historical information to go by. Statistics stroke data as to how one approaches uh, this in the past decade or 2 decades. Whatever happened in terms of a virus was many, many years before that. The pandemic has brought to the fore issues related to healthcare, mental health, infrastructure void, supply chain disruptions. So, how do we prepare? No one is actually clear about ground reality as we speak. Therefore, each and every is like a unique patient. There is no single remedy. There is no one size fit all solution. Let's see in the slides from here on how to approach construction management of a plant. Uh, I will lean more towards plants because that's my background and that's where I come from. And all the steps that we and the vigilance and alertness that is required. Look at context setting. The pandemic has changed context irreversibly. We are now looking at new norms, for even town planning, smart cities, wherever dense population is likely to coexist. There was a time when used to ask construction managers and project managers to ensure working conditions at site. But now and today, we are posed with the challenge of creating a safe working environment so that people, the number one asset, do not get affected or infected due to proximity. So out of the window go handshakes, hugs, touch, feel, liposuction. We now have instead masks, social distancing, washing of hands, hygiene, proper standard operating procedures have been created, a system of recording, checking, and approval of people and their health condition. Cycles are repeated. Lessons from the clean industry, that's the pharma industry, even though offices are sparsely populated nowadays. No standing meetings near coffee vending machines, water coolers, okay? Muffled sneezes, no one is blowing their nose loudly. So that's it. We're really going through time. Context setting, likely impacts. Uh, First and foremost, relook at project viability. We take it as a given at this point that the project is viable. So infrastructure needs to be created. If it's an existing site which is restarting, then we have to revalidate what is existing, modify to suit new normal. Contractors have been hit badly. Okay. We have to look whether there are safeguards in their contract uh, which will provide them with not only uh, time extension because of force majeure and coupled with government directives of lockdown, but also money to remobilize and money to meet and satisfy new normal and COVID-19 considerations. Uh, Owners and sponsors, I think, hold dialogue, listen to find the quickest way to get the project execution back on rails. Uh, Certainty, that is very clear. We are guessing, making assumptions. Important to live in the humane approach, talk to suppliers, listen to them, document their problems and issues, identify critical areas that can impact the project, handhold suppliers. Supply chain disruptions are to be handled proactively. It's no longer as usual. There's a possibility that new rates will need to be discussed. as there are difficulties in the logistics part, in the interstate movement, movement through containment areas. Uh, some areas truly there are non-cooperative agencies, both government and private, actually identifying things, and we are starting to see ghosts that don't exist. The observations and likely scenarios. We're looking at skills, equipment, we're looking at labor, and we are looking at how work needs to be done from here on. So important is of skilled crew. Now, most migrant population, thanks to whatever happened, are reluctant today to venture very far from home base. Once bitten, twice shy. Solution would be to ask the main contractor, the EPC contractor, to send emissaries to collect crew, offer incentives and employment continuity, which is one of the main concerns for migrant labor. Alternatively, or also start training centers near the project site as a initiative, seek government support or tie-ups with NGOs, make it a CSR initiative for the company, look at trades and look at operator and driver skills. Another issue would be to try and see, another solution would be to try and see whether we can increase automation, look at modular construction, revisit design of many of the plant areas to see whether we can fit in a lot more prefab to be done in workshops. Okay. We would have to immediately look at working two shifts right from starting or resumption of activities, simply because time has been lost. There's nothing like making up time. So we have got to work harder and longer to try and see whether we can still bring the project as close to what was the original schedule. So we look at two shifts working, maybe 10 hours each, 4 hours of preparation in between in terms of maintenance. There's some areas which will call for some radiography or welding that has been done, desanitizing and cleaning up, trash collection, segregation of trash. So we have to meticulously plan the 4 hours that we will get after two shifts to try and see whether we can get all this so that the project site is conducive to efficient working. We'll now touch upon infrastructure, material, the process, that is, what would be the project work sequence and priorities, and last of all, people, most important. Time to delve and dwell upon what all is essential and necessary for smooth restart or start, and the minimum time that is required to be up and running. Okay. So infrastructure, we would create laydown areas, main stores. Normally, these are within site premises, but in a post-COVID kind of situation, better to have it as close to the project site, but outside the actual site location. The logistics team shall control movement in and out of both material as well as people. We would need to allot fabrication space inside the site premises for all disciplines, okay, civil, mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, insulation, painting. We have to look at to how we will manage over-dimension consignments, that is large equipment coming in, whether we will take them directly to foundation, whether we'll take it to a specific area where we'll do a dress up of the columns. That is, if there are internals, we would install them. We would even complete insulation activities before we actually erect so that we don't have to work at high elevations at a later date. For erecting large equipment, there'll be a small window where we'll get the heavier cranes into the project site as such. For civil, we look at ready-mix concrete availability, batching plant, bar bending areas. We'll have to create emergency medical rooms, so which means we'll convert containers, a 40-foot container or something like that, into a first aid, uh, medical room, as well as something which can even perform minor surgery in the unlikely event of a mishap. Okay, uh, we would have to have on-call ambulances first and fire engines. Look at quarantine space both in the living quarters area, just outside the site, and also within site. Okay, uh, living quarters have to be properly designed. Canteen mess should be huge now. We look at for cleaning and sanitization. We look at dry air booths. We look at wash areas, okay, where you use water jet. We look at ultraviolet also as another possibility to sanitize or sterilize uh, equipment or tools. We'll have to segregate permanent material and temporary material. In project sites, we have temporary material, which are erection aids and fixtures, which are brought into the site uh, just for ease of construction, and then they're taken back. Uh, the permanent material will be in two forms. One is the fabricated equipment or fabricated bulk material, etc., that comes in, or raw material that needs to be converted to shapes and forms that will eventually get erected. We have other consumables like electrodes, gas, and petrol, oil, and lubricants. How do these come in from the laydown area to the job site in terms of requirement on every 2-day basis or a weekly basis? Okay. For the process part of it, we have to look at project work sequence and the priorities. All plants have a pre-commissioning and commissioning schedule, which clearly lays down which are the units required initially and how commissioning will progress. And therefore, that priority will actually dictate how we will do things on the job site as such, including, of course, areas in the plant that require more time just because they are more intricate. So startup of those areas and completing those in good time will be a priority. uh, we look at starting off with civil first because initially we'll have to build labor. I mean, we may start with, say, 100 people and then try and in 2 weeks, once we get used to working with restrictions, etc. Uh, when civil is complete in small areas where there is not much of social distancing possible, mechanical cannot come in at that time, so they will come in only when civil exits. But in other areas, you can have mechanical coming. Civil is about 40% complete, and there is a work front available for mechanical. Similarly, for electrical and instrumentation, pre-commissioning teams will come in, of course, later when things are more or less mechanically complete. People, well, we need to create a healthy atmosphere. We need to have happy teams performing. We performance enabling kind of incentives. We need to motivate people, zero stress, and we have to push to get the fervor of loving to do work and enjoying work. Infrastructure. This is all kinds of infrastructure that we need to create, and then all the rest of it. This is really related to people. People have to be taken care of. So we would have a team of marshals, wardens, and attendants, which are assigned to specific teams, and they will cover all crew and staff plus support staff. These guys will be responsible to ensure that all rules are strictly followed by the team members. Okay, there will have to be a full-fledged security team in place, a medical team to check and maintain records of each member, like a dossier opened and updated, assign an alphanumeric ID for every member. The medical facility and quarantine areas, safety and hygiene will be paramount importance. We'll have to have a separate logistics team to ferry people and also to ferry material in and out of the project site. Uh, we would have to have constant education because for crew, they literally literacy levels actually vary. So one would have to take a lot of time to and patience to educate them. Maybe there will be some role playing to make them understand. There may be some videos to show them so that they comprehend what exactly is required of them from a safe and hygiene perspective. Uh, in a way, actually, the pandemic has forced all concerned to look seriously at living conditions, and clean and bath and toilet areas, including upkeep and hygienic maintenance. The crews are beneficiaries of this upgraded kind of facility that they will now get. And therefore, this should elicit better performance as everything is taken care of at an acceptable level. Okay. Canteen mess regulations in respect of social distancing. We have to create a low lay down area close to site premises, ensure there's a proper boundary wall and fence, 24 by 7 security, earmark storage space, parking space, proper access to all parts of the laydown area as well as the job site, uh, all the roads and access paths should be well compacted or carpeted, good for all seasons kind of stuff. You will have wash down areas, air drying booths, ultraviolet containers, partially covered areas, and there will be a proper control room set up with a PA system and availability of emergency power and safety personnel to ensure strict monitoring and compliance of all the SOPs. SOPs will have to be revisited for certain fine tuning as we will implement them so that we try and make them foolproof. We now look at handling of equipment, material, handling of waste, handling of piping bulk, and hot air booths. So ODC and large consignments will actually go directly to the site, either to the close to the foundation area where they have to be installed or erected, or they may go to an area where dressing up of the equipment will be done in terms of installation of internals, installation of special parts onto the equipment, insulation if it is required, hot or cold, or even protection insulation. Okay. Raw material shall all go to the preparation yard or the fabrication yard. Management of waste, wet, dry, plastics at all locations, whether it is living quarters area, whether it is the laydown area, whether it is within the job site. Training shall be imparted to the people who are, entrusted with the responsibility to take care of waste. And certain mandatory conditions will be laid down that will have to be followed. We have to also look at how we manage whenever fabrication is done or whenever change in form is done of rolled sections which are flat or like something like channels and angles and things like that, structural steel. They will be scrap rated, there will be offcuts. So reconciliation in terms of material accounting. Normally in project sites, when these are all done towards the end of the job, but in this kind of a situation, we'll have to try and find a methodology by which every 2 months we are accounting and taking away the scrap and keeping the site as clean as possible. Uh, Piping bulk material that comes in the form of pipes and fittings, these have open ends, and therefore end caps will have to be provided. We'll have to make sure that this is there. In some cases, machining is done, edge preparation is done, and therefore we'll have to make sure that these edges are protected and shielded. All storage has to be above ground. Nothing should lie directly on the ground. So we'll have to make sure that there are pallets and spacers available. there must be airflow as such, circulation rather. Okay. Identification of the piping bulk material as well as piping metrics that are coming prefabricated to the job site will have RFIDs, so they can be easily identified, and we will know where they will get installed in the plant as such. We must encourage more prefabricated piping spools to be made. We can, because we can exercise better control in terms of quality in workshops rather than on a comparative degree to the job site, and especially with restrictions now thanks to COVID. All the cleaning areas, whether we call the drying, air drying areas or the wash areas, they will have to be maintained with proper drains. We must not permit any muck, etc., to form. So upkeep of these areas is extremely important. This will be done on every 48-hour basis so that there are no issues. Roll-in of material, especially small items and fragile items, which undergo UV scans, will also have to be thought of and proper care exercised. We now look at materials, but then non-steel. Here, something like HDPE pipes, large pipes, which are sleeves, are also used for road crossings and culvert crossings, etc. So you have FRP, we have composites, you have special parts, which are a combination of some of these items. You have fragile items like instruments, detectors, meters, calibrated stuff, delicate spares, logistics, challenge, port clearance, documentation for each and every consignment that needs to be cleared. Uh, Within the country itself, movement from one location to the job site, within site movements from the laydown areas to the site. We have to look at fumigation and sanitization that needs to be done for goods that come either from outside of India or even within India prior to their entry to the job site. So that's where all these hot air boots and the water jet areas will come in handy. Okay. Uh, we need to look at logistics. We'll look at multimodal transportation also, because in certain parts you may have to move them via barge and then bring them on, or from road to barge, and in that kind of a fashion, depending on location of the job site and also the origin from where material is coming in. When large consignments move, logistics have a different kind of challenge to ensure that there are route surveys done, that there is clean and proper movement, that the right kind of trailer beds, multi-axle beds, right kind of pullers, etc., are used. Where customs is concerned, if there is documentation related to hazardous material or flammable material, well, proper certifications will have to be in place when the documents are submitted for clearance. Um, it'll be good to have photographs available of goods when they are packed at the uh, at origin. Uh, Phytosanitary certification for packing material, permit to use asbestos is not given any longer. So everything has got to be asbestos. So the origin to site plan should be a blow by blow account. Okay. Packing lists will have to be accurate. Descriptions must match customs tariff codes, including classifications. So this makes simpler and no red flags. Now look at other kinds of material related to electrical and instrumentation. First thing here is that when we managing electrical and instrumentation items, etc., no mist spraying and no water spraying on any of these items, because they are no as far as these items are concerned. This material management of EL and IC in the short form is a challenge, because you have big, very big, not so big, huge, medium, small, delicate, fragile, calibrated. not to be unpacked, inert gas filled, clean and dry. So, various kinds of combinations. So OEM recommendations or manufacturer recommendations have to be followed to the T. Okay. Shippers have got to ensure that they are taking care. Any treatment prior to packing and handling post-packing also to be meticulously followed. Electrical items are, transformers, diesel generating sets, HT motors, LT motors, and stuff like that, including HVAC and the PA systems and fire alarm systems. For the instrumentation, you have DCS, SCADA, you have field instruments, performance measuring devices, manifolds, PCs, monitors, large screens. Whenever we are going to look at fragile items and delicate items to be scanned by UV, we'll have to create a system by which you have some kind of a conveyor carrying all these items, going into the UV booth area and then coming out and then stacked once again. We'll have to use our ingenuity and apply our mind to minimize a lot of effort in these areas and ensure that these are done in a satisfactory manner all the way. Now, civil, well, this is a different kind of challenge because most of the items which are used in civil or material that is used in civil is all dust prone, you see. So there's a huge challenge there. So we have to also look at dry storage, moisture free, because if cement bags are kept, in contact with the floor, etc., then the lower layer or the lower two layers of cement bags actually harden over a period of time just because there is moisture ingress. So we'll have to make sure there is air circulation. We have to create a lab for the civil jobs, especially so that you can get your cube testing done. It's a 7-day test or a 14-day test, and then you look at moisture analysis with Proctor's density test. It's good to procure treated tor steel round bars because then this will actually ensure integrity of structures built with them are safer because onset of corrosion and rusting will be much slower. All the other room fittings and the toilet fittings, the flooring items, the breakables, etc. These have got to be managed differently. We'll have to decide on the use of ready-mix concrete or setting up of a batching plant. If ready-mix concrete installations are available close to the site, it's good to have an arrangement so that you can get that in. That saves some trouble. Of course, there will be a separate issue because of the entry of these machines and their exits also after they have completed stuff. Also, how to store river sand because in some sites, if they are in different areas, river sand is availability is a question. And also, certain mafias control all this, so you've got to make sure that you have the arrangements done in the right manners. This also applies to aggregate. Okay. Now we come to process and balances, right? Now, construction priorities will be the sequence as plan, which I referred to earlier when we started off, okay, and the sequence in which this will go. We also need to push non-plant buildings so that we can create the permanent infrastructure, which means we will quickly construct ASAP, fire station, medical center, canteen, mess, etc., so that we can have these facilities available. We'll have to do regular process checks. You have HAZOP meetings. But most important is the outcome of these meetings that we must incorporate and communicate closure of all points that are raised in such discussions. Do more construction audits, have a hit team concept to take care of repairs if at all necessary. More important, of course, to do it first time right, but then in case there are issues. Construction do's and don'ts, a lot of education in these areas, especially when it comes to large gaskets handling and spiral wound gaskets and things like that. If not handled properly, will not actually serve the purpose they are intended for. Bolting sequences, bolting torque, in certain equipment have very large bolts and huge nuts. And then normally you'll find that at site we have some contraption that we make out of plate and stuff like that. Whereas actually these special tools come along with the equipment so that bolting can be uh, much easier and done in a proper manner. We have to be extremely careful with alignment of rotating equipment and bagging machines or weighing machines and weighing systems, unloading arms, etc., to unload product into storage areas. Uh, there are sometimes issues related to internals, especially if it is related to agitators, because in some cases, agitator blades will have to be taken into the equipment before you close out the equipment as such, because otherwise the manhole opening is too small to take the blades in, and then you have a problem. You have to open up the top dish again after having fitted the motor and things like that. So there's a hell of a lot of rework that is done. We'll have to look at simulations for pollution control tolerances to be maintained and stuff like that. So a lot of care needs to be taken. We now come to the plant site, and of course, things related to chemical, petrochemical, uh, in terms of similar sites. Okay. Now, the challenge here is to create infrastructure starting from the main gate itself and within the site premises. One, we should not scrounge here. We should ensure that we make infrastructure functional but comfortable. Uh, we must avoid being penny wise and pound foolish. We must secure the site first. We must make sure that there's a huge boundary wall and fencing. Deploy security staff 24/7. Have separate gates for entry of material and for vehicles and people. Okay. Make sure the screening, scrutiny, and check both for people and vehicles is done at the gate itself. We must man accordingly. We must train people how they have got to carry out these operations. We must ensure that there is a record of in and out. If there is any doubt to people not being fit, then they must be immediately directed to a mobile medical center, which is close to the main gate. This will actually be a container or something where it will be like an emergency room, okay, manned 24/7 with adequate crew, in medicine stocks as well as a chemist or a compounder, so that we that the medicine that is administered is correct. Proper sanitization and sterilization of kits and instruments. Make roomy change rooms and make sure restrooms are good. Mess, canteen, toilet, hand wash, all these areas have to be made drain offs. Cleaning them is easy, draining them is not so difficult. So you should have slopes going in different directions and making sure there's no waterlogging and stuff like that. Um, in a way, actually, COVID-19 is a blessing for crew and staff on site as they will see upgraded versions of usual facilities and a huge change in attitude where upkeep and cleanliness is concerned. Uh, Hello. Uh, we are guilty in various degrees. I think in earlier times we used to make these facilities, but then upkeep and maintenance used to be very poor. So I think we had some misplaced priorities in earlier times, but I'm happy now things are going to change thanks to COVID. Okay. At logistics now of workmen and people. This is quite kind of thing. This slide, of course, will be shared so that you guys will have, gentlemen, will have an idea as to what all is said herein. But to very briefly put it across, we're looking at discouraging visitors, okay, making sure screening of vehicles is done, sanitizing and disinfection, temperature checks, social distancing is maintained. We will regulate onboarding and offboarding, strict protocols. Time we'll utilize, it to play videos related to safety and hygiene, and we make sure that people have understood. Important to stress that each member has to be safe and healthy and hearty for the sake of their families, whom they leave behind at different residences across the country. And many of these guys are sole breadwinners, and therefore that they will be have to be healthy and working all the time is extremely important from an economic standpoint. Uh, we come to project work sequence. At all times, apply our minds and use God-given fertile brain so that there is no room for errors and rework. First time right, we have to stay one jump in terms of the anticipation and visualization. We have to have access to all site, and therefore this is extremely important. So be it men, material, machine, or management, movement from A to B or A to Z, and vice versa. PPE stands for personal protection equipment. PPE also stands for perfect planning for execution. This is extremely vital, gentlemen. We make sure that this happens. Brainstorm for ways and means for the path forward. Listen, learn to listen. Leaders need to practice to speak actually, and acknowledge all contributions and suggestions. Okay, the priority, the commissioning sequence, and each unit completion is extremely vital. Uh, Civil exits, mechanical comes in, and then electrical and instrumentation. We must monitor safe distancing, low laxity, zero risk. Okay. We look at a layout, wherein you start with the main gate. So on the one hand, this is all the warehouse and material out. Here you have raw material storage and incoming. Then you have, this is actually a polystyrene plant built for in Nagothone way back in 1993-94 when I was with UDA. I was on the job site. I still have a faint memory of how the layout was, and therefore I've tried my hand at trying to explain this to you. What you will see is that the important part is that the layout is fairly spread out. Distance between units, the opportunity to judiciously up the crew strength in each shift, take electrical, take electrical works, for example. The main work areas are switchyard and the MCC. So you have switchyard, which is, my God, sorry. Which is at one end, you have the MCC in between somewhere on the job site. So electrical can work independently in these areas actually, even when civil etc is going on elsewhere and stuff like that. So we'll have to do some sequencing and push. We need to also make sure that the non things are pushed, and the offices area etc, so that we convert actually many of the rooms that we create for our executives. Let us have the large rooms with attached bath etc. We can make them as guest rooms for all the specialists who conditioning, instead of keeping them in hotels and stuff like that. We create a facility, save on that. Then we don't have to worry about logistics and transportation. They can simply walk into site and walk back, create a huge mess, make sure we will have no elevators, all 2 floors. So you will have a slab on floor 3, a slab on floor 4. This is related to, solar paneling, or in terms of communication network, windsocks, lightning arresters. But then people only in ground first and second maximum. Okay. Uh, you have to have spacious canteens and messes. Let everybody enjoy good food as long as they are able to give good. Okay. The commissioning sequence in the plant is starting from material storage, which is in blue. Okay, which goes through the yellow areas of rubber cutting and rubber dissolving, and then goes into the unit areas of type GPPS, which is general purpose polystyrene, HIPS, which is high impact polystyrene. When this raw material is styrene that is mixed with the dissolved rubber solution, that's put into a reaction chamber, and then at a certain temperature you get molten polystyrene. You have to make sure that it doesn't polymerize. So there's a small window in the temperature cycle in which you have got to make it out. We come to the last part, which is people. Man is a social animal, so we have impressionable minds. So we must try and ensure that we are refrained and we refrain from being influenced and stay away from media propaganda. It's important to have courage. Teams have to be grateful that their world is undisturbed, and they have got to keep it that way and have gratitude. You control what is in your hands. Hence, do your thing, stay disciplined, exercise, and hygiene top priority. Keep your work area safe. Keep your tools and tackles clean, tip-top hygienic conditions. Check, double check. We owe this to your mates. So, in short, eat, exercise, enjoy, envision good days, and stay exuberant. Okay. Oh, we have to accept the situation we are in. We cannot live in denial. The guy next to us is our buddy, and we got to feel for him, take care of him, uh, give confidence to him and saying, I got your back, man. We got to live in the present. We have to trust and have faith that all has to be well, and we shall ensure that plans don't go awry. We come to the wrap up slide. So, battle cry is, we shall succeed. In Hindi, they say, hum honge kamyab. We shall gainfully employ men, materials, and machines and money to obtain the outcome that is desired. The keys are look before you leap, think before you act, be confident, be courageous, accept situations, but don't give in, have faith, put to use your knowledge and experience, take stock at intervals and course correct if need be the leader, believe in yourself and your team, and thank you very much. That completes.
Thank you, Ayasa. That was indeed a great presentation and very relevant topic with the current situations. And we are on time. So we have now a couple of minutes available to take questions. So I open the stage for the audience. If anybody got any questions to ask, you can even post your questions in the chat. Before that, I just want to update that the recording of this session is available. We will be uploading that in the YouTube. So if you want to have those, have a relook at the presentation, yes, definitely it will be available in YouTube, PMIK Kerala chapter's YouTube site. Okay, over to you guys. Any questions, anything you want to raise, feel free to raise it. All right, I don't see any questions in the chat. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, there's one come from my friend Tejas Sura.
Yeah, yeah.
He's the past president of our Mumbai chapter, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so he's looking at what question related to how would you handle local problems in terms of time and cost management? Well, Tejas, there are different ways, but two things. Most important is to listen to people who have these problems and try and see whether there are solutions, meet them halfway and take it forward. A lot of these problems come up only during land acquisition, etc. So these don't happen during the site operations, except you could have maybe locals demanding jobs and things like that. So there has got to be some kind of agreement made with the village panchayats or the people who are in those areas, etc. So we can avoid problems when site construction is on. This is one way, but depending on the situation, would have to see and react in a manner, but also stay positive. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? Otherwise, I think that's a great session. I have posted the. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I had posted one question. Hi, my name is Suchita and I work with MNC. A great session, Mr. Nair, but I just had one question. A lot of commercial complexes are being released by the MNCs and they are now encouraging WFH, work from home, for us. So how do you see this as an impact on commercial and residential complexes?
Well, two things. Work from home is, I think, something which we will have to live with. And even in good times, a lot of companies, especially IT and IT related, where you don't have to, have too much of decisions happening in terms of a group. This will become a norm. That's one part. MNCs are releasing, well, if they don't need it, they will obviously release. One good thing will happen if there is more and more is available, then the prices will come down. Maybe rents will be much lower and things like that. So others who require it may be able to grab it at better prices. But this is maybe a fallout of the COVID situation. We'll have to wait and watch how many people do it and see. There is no one specific answer that I can give at this point. But yeah, let's stay connected. As and when I have more ideas, I'll share, and maybe there is some more consensus coming up because of this.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Okay, I have pasted the PDU claim code in the chat window, so whoever had joined can use that PDU claim code to claim the PDUs. I think that's it. We don't have any further questions. So once again, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Arun, who had delivered a wonderful session on COVID construction management in post-COVID scenarios. And it is very relevant and very knowledgeable one. Thank you, Arun, on behalf of PMIK and all the participants over here for your wonderful presentation and time on this call.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and I'm happy to be of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. The video claim codes are shared on the chat window, so please great use of that. And see you in the next webinar. Thank you all.